Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and I pulled out the Doodlebug Hey Pumpkin collection today, as well as the October 2025 sketch from Page Maps. I cannot get enough of this collection. I just love the fun, bright colors, and I feel like there's just so many possibilities. I know I've already done a trunk or treat. We do them every single year. This is from 2022, and it is a different type of trunk or treat than the other one that I did. I'm perfectly okay with using collections across the years. They will be in different albums, so you won't even be able to tell that I use the same collection or that I'm documenting the same type of theme. But I knew that I had to use the trunk or treat embellishment from this collection. For this trunk or treat, I had a ton of photos of the kids playing the different games, but I just narrowed it down to 4 photos. I'm going to do 3x4 photos over on the right hand side. I'm going to do 2 instead of 4 of the smaller photos. So I'm still using that same space from the sketch, but I'm making it work for my photos. I'm still going to have 4 photos in that area because I'm going to bring in a flip flap, but all of my photos were portrait photos and the photos depicted on the sketch were landscape. So for the top of this layout, I'm going to add that really fun, busy pattern paper that has all of the candies on it. I am going to separate the black paper from that busy paper with this green paper. And of course, you know that I can't ever cut anything straight or the same size. So sometimes I do just adhere them together with just a little bit of ATG. And I usually don't have an issue with that ATG coming off. Most of the time I do adhere them back to back. So if it does rip a little bit, it'll be fine. But this one I forgot to do it and I didn't have any issues. For the bottom half of the layout, I'm going to use another pretty busy pattern paper with this really pretty plaid that has all of the colors in it. I think what I'm really drawn to this collection is because it has what I would think is not necessarily traditional Halloween colors. With the pinks and the greens especially, I feel like those added along with the orange and the yellow, which I feel like are more traditional Halloween colors, it just makes such a fun collection for Halloween, especially if you're doing Halloween pictures of the little ones. I think for every layout that I've done with this collection, I have used the black for my background paper. I just feel like that really does pop against all of these like neon colors. Once I get the paper from the top and the bottom down, I am going to go ahead and add this green strip in between that really busy pattern paper and the black cardstock just to give it a little bit of separation. Later on, I'm going to realize that I didn't follow the sketch because the green paper on the right should have been on top of this paper, but I'm just going to go with it. I originally thought I was going to use the yellow, but then I wasn't sure about it. So I tried out all of the Doodlebug petite prints that came with the collection. And I started out with the polka dotted paper that was yellow that had white polka dots on it. And I end up with the polka dotted paper that is tone on tone. So same pattern, but I felt like the yellow polka dots just worked better than the white polka dots. I'm trying to decide how much paper I need to cut down. I laid down my photos and then I use the very technical technique of marking the paper with my fingernail. And then when I put it on the trimmer, I just measure it to the nearest inch or half inch, quarter inch, whatever line it's closest to. And I just go with it that way. For the left-hand side of the layout, the yellow paper ends up being 3 inches. I did use a total of 12 inches, so the right-hand side does have 9 inches. And then I did trim down that yellow paper to 9 inches. So I have a 9x9 square on the right-hand side and then 9x3 on the left. And then I'm going to add my photos. This trunk or treat had actual horses and the kids were able to do like a little pony ride kind of in a circle. They were guided by the person who I'm assuming owns the horses from this trunk or treat. And so I included both of the kids on the horses in the center of the layout. And then over on the far left-hand side is a group shot of myself, my mom, and then the 2 kids in front of this like really big circle that says trunk or treat. And then it has the church that the trunk or treat was held at. And then for the far right-hand side, this is where I'm going to go ahead and adhere my 2 photos together and put them in that 3x4 flip flap. I love using flip flaps. I feel like they give you additional photos on your layouts, obviously, but it doesn't compromise the space that maybe the sketch calls for or the area that you want to put your photos in. So I was able to get a total of 7 photos on this layout by adding that flip flap over on the far right hand side. Of course, I'm going to be adding some stitching to this layout. I decided to do just a row underneath the green paper. I'm going to do the tone on tone with the black. And then I'm going to do a row of stitching around the edge of that yellow paper. I really struggle with getting my holes straight in the corners. So I did decide to use my T-square ruler. And if you own a T-square ruler, you know that there's the numbers, but then there's also the little hashes. And I decided to just line up the hashes on the edge of the yellow paper, draw my pencil marks, and then I poked my holes. I did do my journaling offline, and I slowed the video down here so that you can see all of that detail. The black stitching is very subtle because obviously it's tone on tone and it is a dark color, but I love the way that the yellow came out. I think that it was a perfect way to do it with the T-square ruler and using the pencil lines. I also decided to add some stitching to the bottom part of the layout as well. On the black lines, I went ahead and added some stitching as well. And then this was the embellishment piece that I knew I had to use on this layout. It says trunk or treat. I saw that embellishment piece with the last layout that I did, which was Halloween Games, which was also a trunk or treat. And I knew I had already settled on that title, so I couldn't pull the trunk or treat in, but that just gave me the idea to create another layout with this title. Over on the left-hand side, I am kind of mimicking the sketch, and I did pull in that viewfinder. I cut it in half so that I could use the other half on another layout. And I brought in that really cute witch with her little cauldron. She's just super cute. I wanted to use some type of candy piece, but that one was just way too large. I thought about moving my title over on the left, but I just wasn't liking the way that that looked either. I was able to find a smaller little banner piece that has a bunch of different candies on it, and it worked perfectly. Everything kind of tied together really well with the witch, the trunk or treat, and those candy pieces. I then start to work on the cluster at the top left, and I'm going to just add a bunch of little candy pieces there as well. I was trying to bring in all of the colors, and then I realized that the center of the viewfinder and the cupcake were both orange, so I did switch it out for a green cupcake instead. And then I'm just going to be adding a lollipop as well as that like wrapped candy. I really wanted to make this little tag that says candy work, but the stripes were just way too busy. I do eventually end up finding a pink tab that I add over on the left-hand side. Since I had the pink tab, I went ahead and added the pink heart that matched it with the same print over on the right to try to bring those two pieces together. I also added a little ghost. And then at this point is where I was like, I should probably start to get stuff adhered down because I do have quite a bit of embellishments kind of softly tacked on my layout. I did put the viewfinder flat to the layout, and then I did put the cupcake up on some foam adhesive, and then the other two pieces of candy are flat to the layout. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing over on the right-hand side. I decided to get that little candy garland flat to the layout, obviously putting my title up on some fun foam so it really stands out. And then I did put that little witch flat to the layout as well. And I actually ended up getting her completely on the yellow square, which I think just works better. And then I just have a few little pieces over on the black cardstock. I did end up pulling up that ghost, and when I did, the top part of it pulled up, but I just put some liquid adhesive on it, and you can't even tell that I ripped it. Then I pulled out the puffy stickers, and I'm going to add a couple of puffy stickers around. I know I've said this before, but the main thing that I love so much about Doodlebug is the fact that they have similar images, but they have so much texture with the flat embellishments, and then you've got the smaller ones with the icons and the mini icons. Then you got your puffy stickers, you got your doodle pops that have some extra dimension on them. And then some of the embellishment pieces have a white border, some of them don't. And I just think that pulling all of that into the same layout just gives it so much variety, just so much character, and it's just one of the reasons that I love Doodlebug so much. Over on the left, I did add a doodle pop of the cat inside the pumpkin. I decided to go ahead and cut out the speech bubble part of that word spooktacular to put it underneath the pumpkin so it had a shelf to sit on. And then I also found an embellishment piece that had the candles, the pumpkin, and the ghost. Added that, but I needed something else for it all to sit on. I needed a shelf. I tried out a couple of different pieces, but ultimately I went back to the sticker sheet and I was looking at the borders, and this little green border worked perfectly. So I went ahead and added that from the photo all the way to the edge of the paper. And then I'm going to fill in the kind of trap space. I added a spider web, and then I'm going to end up adding a candy piece that matches the one that's up at the top. But I did decide to put that up on some fun foam just to give it a little bit of extra dimension and kind of match that pumpkin cat doodle pop. I wanted to make sure that I used up all the pieces from the doodle pops, so I'm going to go ahead and add those around the layout as well, just kind of tucking them in, adding them to any of the trap spaces that I see on the layout. And then I went back to the puffy stickers because I wanted to fill in some more candy over on the right hand side. I had that flat piece, but I felt like having the puffy stickers would bring in some dimension to the title piece as well. I also decided to use some of the dots from the puffy stickers to add to the title cluster at the top. And then I'm going to pull in these spiders. I don't think that these spiders actually came with the collection. I think they're from an older collection, but they work with this collection as well. So I'm going to tuck those spiders in a couple places over on the far left, as well as on top of that pink heart. And then I pulled out some of the shape sprinkles to add a couple more candy pieces, as well as some of the puffy dots and diamonds around the layout as well. You guys know that I love a good page map sketch that spans the entire layout where you have pattern paper on both sides, and this one is no exception. And I am so glad that they are back creating sketches again. I looked through some of the other embellishments and I decided to go ahead and add a spider web to the right hand side since I had one on the left, as well as a puffy spider. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did do my journaling offline and there's nothing fancy about this one. It just says ponies, prizes, and piles of candy. Eli and Nicholas had a best time at the trunk or treat. And then I had the year of 2022. All right, if you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.